All right, everybody, welcome to the show today. My name is Matthew Taub from Unapologetically Jewish. We have an incredible guest today. It was a last minute add on just to really give a thank you for something really important that happened over the weekend. And I think the community really was taken aback by it in a good way. And I really wanted to get the conversation started today. So I want to welcome our guest, John Ruffalo, who is the founder and managing partner of Mavericks Private Equity Group. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matt. Pleasure to be here.
Amazing. So, first of all, thank you for taking time away. You're on vacation, which is huge. And I really appreciate that. We want to mention
No
that right
worries.
off the bat because we don't want to waste your time. But I really want to jump into this because, like I've said right before we got talking here, the full page ad came out across the country, and the Jewish community was taken so back. We were caught off guard. This was not something anybody expected to see Saturday morning. And it started off, I first heard of it through a WhatsApp group chat, and somebody said, does anybody get the Toronto Star? Which I don't know anybody who does. And that's the only place that anybody knew of it. They heard it was in the Star. And then it was what's also in the Post. It's also in Free Press. It became, wait a second. And then going through the list of names. So first off, from the Jewish community and from Unapologetically Jewish as our grassroots, but really from the community at large, I want to thank you for putting this together and for stepping outside of what many haven't done over the last couple of years, but really we've seen where it is now. I want to thank you on behalf of the Jewish community for doing that. And that was
Great.
amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got to ask you, how did you come about this? Let's start from the beginning and we'll work our way forward. How did
Sure.
this come about?
Well, it was actually the brainchild of Prem Watsa, the founder of Fairfax Financial. This has been a topic that I know he's been frustrated about, and so have I. And it was him, and it was done very, very quickly.
Yeah.
We were reached out about a week ago, I believe, and it was him who said, we want to publish this in every major newspaper. And he asked me, do I want to lend my name? And of course, I said yes. He's known of my frustration as well. And I use the term frustration purposefully because it's rather frustrating that this is even necessary.
Yeah.
And this is the part that's perplexing me. Now, I'll make two general comments. Number one, we shouldn't have to do this. We're in Canada. And, it is only the Jewish people who get connected to to a state. As an Italian, as a Roman Catholic, when countries that are Roman Catholic do some horrible things, I don't get chastised for it, nor should I. Same thing with Muslims. They don't as well if one of their countries does something that people don't like, but yet there always seems to be an exception for Jewish people. And either people are very stupid, and many of them are, or people are sending a very strong message about anti-Semitism. That's point number one. And that was really the point that we're trying to get at. I'm not making a political statement about what Israel does. Frankly, I'm not qualified to do so, but I'm highly qualified to talk about Canada and say, this does not belong here, period. And if you're not from here and you're here temporarily, you shall be removed. And it's very, very simple. And we don't need new laws. I don't want any new laws. Just enforce the laws that we have. That was point number one. Point number two, and this was really the point of the letter. And what I really appreciated what Prem did, I was actually a little bit surprised at some of the names of folks who are the CEOs of very, very large organizations. It is way easier for someone like me, who, frankly, I can say whatever I want to say, and I say the truth. I acknowledge it's a little bit more difficult, but not that difficult. And I got to say to you, on October the 7th, when it occurred, that day I sent out a LinkedIn post just conveying, my disgust over what happened. Thinking, by the way, not that I did it for this reason, thinking that it'll be amongst hundreds, if not thousands, of business leaders. And I was shocked, disappointed, saddened that I ended up being almost one of a very, very few.
Yeah.
And there was a correlation of those who were, founders of their own businesses like myself that tended to say things, and anybody who ran a larger multinational corporation, frankly, was quiet, and that was disappointing. So the real value of what you saw, what many of the folks who were quiet, and by the way, I privately chastised them for being quiet,
Right.
spoke up. And that was, I think, the real message that people should take from this.
That's amazing. There were a lot of names. I think a lot of people were like, "Whoa." And they were on top of the whole, first of all, the full page, that was a throwback of like, what's happening? This is amazing. But also going through those list of names, and it wasn't a few names. There were, I mean, there were so many names there that I think some people even looked up going, "Who are they?" Which was also really good to see. And, after October 7th, you mentioned that you made a comment, you made a post, and being chastised for it, but also the fact that you also reached out privately. I think that's important too, to know that as a Jewish community, we've been saying, if you're not saying it publicly, right? But to know that there are other people out there who were saying to other individuals, why aren't you saying something? Like, why aren't you being public about it? And many people had their own reasons for it. And I'm not going to get into that because they're their own reasons. Some were professional, some were personal, but it's amazing that after 2.5 years, and that it came about that now we're in a situation where people can stand up to it. What were some of the conversations you've had leading into this last, week, I'd say, were you talking to any of the signatories that were on there?
Yeah, no, I did. I Many of them are my friends. Now, here is, the truth of the matter is privately, even back 2.5 years ago, many of these folks vehemently agreed with the support, but they were afraid to say it, which, that's a problem in and of itself. And I'm glad that after 2.5 years, many of them have now publicly stated, and it doesn't mean, and this is the part that I find absolutely, ridiculous, and the buffoons who are on, X, that, the number one comment is, well, if you believe that, you're protecting hate speech in this country, that means that you are, complicit in the killing of people in
Right.
Palestine. It's like guys, this is where most of these people, and we know what political spectrum they tend to belong to. It's very, very consistent. And again, separate the two. I, you don't need to correlate the fact that Jews in Canada have anything to do with the actions of a conflict that has been going on for thousands of years. And that's why I say I am not qualified to comment. And if you want to go into that debate, by all means. But you know what? But the moment you bring that debate physically into this country, this is when I have a problem. And the problem that I have is, and again, I am from an immigrant family, Italian, Roman Catholic, is, when you allow these cracks, and it's always funny, again, the people who are least tolerant in our society tend to be from an extreme political spectrum. Let's call it out. The extreme left are the most intolerant people, because if you don't agree with them, then hence you are bad.
Yes.
Whether you are left of center, right of center, no one cares. Canada is a centrist,
Most
balanced,
Canadians for a long time stood with both feet on either side of the
all
line.
the time. I have left of center views, I have right of center views, and it depends on the particular topic. But the
Yeah.
moment you go extreme on either side of the spectrum, you start running into problems. And the anti-Semitic tends to come from the extreme left. And it's just being masked by the people have this hatred. And, you know, if you do, it's fine, but you cross a legal line, you either, I think, and this is my strong view, the full weight of the law applies to you. And if you are not a citizen of this country, you will be shipped back.
Yeah.
Period. No mercy. Nothing. Get the hell out of this country. And speaking as, again, as a Roman Catholic, today could be the Jews. Tomorrow it's the Italians or the Roman. And where does it stop? And
Yeah.
the answer is, We are all brothers and sisters. I tell you a little funny story. I was working with a high tech group, and they had asked me, they were giving me an award on allyship, and I was asked, "Hey, could you let me know which of your buddies are Jewish?" And I said, "Well, no one's ever asked me that question before because they're my buddies." And I had to think, okay, now who has Passover? And do I remember? I had to go and I had to struggle. And this is where I want to get to. No one asks me that I am Roman Catholic, nor should anyone care. I don't care who's Protestant. That's where we need to revert back to, and we should just share the same values of being a Canadian. This is my hope for this nation. We need to get there. And if there's some people in the way, well, we'll have to deal with those folks.
I agree, and that goes back to 40 years ago. That was we didn't know when people were kicked out. It just happened, right? It was a lot harder to get in too. That's also changed, and that far left movement is one of the biggest culprits in it. Where if you don't agree with them or align with them, you are the bad guy. The argument about or the statement you made about being Roman Catholic, and it's true because you're not persecuted for something that happens in Italy. You know, we're not.
Never.
I'm not. I am not. I stand with Ukraine against the Russians, but I'm not standing outside of a Russian Orthodox church
No.
yelling and throwing things at them and telling them they have to go back where they came from, right? Or like that. That's the most insane thing because we don't see it anywhere else, and we know that you know the argument of what happens in Israel comes over here where I have to speak for what happens over there, right? I'll be honest with you. I don't know enough of any other country's politics. And let's be honest, most Canadians don't know enough about our own damn politics to have an opinion, let alone have an opinion of a foreign country's politics and what they do and what they decide to do. So to have an opinion and blame other people for what happens over there is completely insane.
Yeah. And I find the irony? Most of my Jewish buddies ha- are not fans of the Israeli government. That's the irony here. A lot of people have a lot of concerns, and yet, but that doesn't come up in the conversation
Right.
because the truth of the matter is, it doesn't matter because they don't want to hear it anyway. It is about anti-Semitism. We've allowed it to bubble up. The previous liberal government, I think, yeah, it's not that they were anti-Semitic. I wouldn't say that, but the fact that they're doing the mathematical calculations of if we support what is right, that might mean a decrease in votes. Like, this is appalling. And I just think that most people will respect the fact that, and again, just using the example of Iran, if Iran's doing some stuff, there's no reason anybody should be going after Islamic people in Canada for the actions of. It's the exact same point, and frankly, they don't. And I generally don't see it.
There,
So
no one's targeting Iranian,
no,
shawarma restaurants. It's not happening.
I know. So I
That is,
hope. One thing that I thought was interesting, though, by the way, Carney. Did you see Carney retweet that?
I did,
And
I
he put
did.
it on his LinkedIn. I thought, okay, that was interesting. That's the first time I've really seen like that was a very positive mood, and I think that's one that folks should take note of as well.
Well, I think we should take note of it, and I think that I've had conversations with members of parliament who've all said he is completely against the anti-Semitism that's happening in Canada, and he's against it, and he wants to work towards fighting it. But at the same time, people are looking at it saying, yes, but every time you call in the ambassador from Israel to answer for X, Y, and Z, the backlash from that comes again to the Jews in Canada. And there has to be some sort of way to separate the two or something. And that's part of the problem. We and I've said this for a long time with my friends who are members of parliament in both parties. The prime minister sets the tone, right? For him to retweet it yesterday, put on, especially to retweet it and put it on LinkedIn says something because we also know that by and large he's still a businessman and
Yeah,
LinkedIn is still his platform. Like
yeah,
we know
yeah,
that, and that means a lot. But it's also looking at how do we get it from him saying enough, like the statement he made, which could have been better or not better. I'm not going to weigh into that this call, but it's him making the statement and him continuing on and making it something that he can deal with, and maybe putting foreign policy, because Canada really has nothing to do with the foreign policy there anyway. We're not a powerhouse.
We have zero influence there.
Right. So just to turn that off and be like, hey, we're not gonna make statements about Israel anymore. We're just gonna focus on anti-Semitism here, would actually be better for the country as a whole. And I think for their party to just not get involved. We have our own fires to work out here. So that's my own thoughts on that. And I think that, you know, again, it comes from they're worried about policy and who's going to vote for them, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I just reiterate. I keep the state of Israel stuff just simply
It's
just
separate.
keeping them separate. I
Yeah.
think is the right path because the other challenge, like let's just say if Italy does something really really stupid, I expect Canada to take a strip out of them. I don't want
Yeah.
Canada to not. That's who we are. But what I don't want Canada internally to turn a blind eye to hate speech that too many of my friends are taking their kids to school when they didn't
Yeah.
have to. Security, I went to JCC Prosserman. I was shocked at the amount of security there, and I just said, like, really? Is this absolutely necessary? And it's unconscionable. No other community center is spending money for security. I mean, it's saddened me as a Canadian. This is not what's supposed to happen. And again,
No.
it's uniquely to the Jewish community.
Yeah. You don't have that at the Columbus Center. It's not happening.
No, no,
Deal with
no.
that.
Because we'll call Gino and Mario and come over and they'll
What?
pack some heat if anybody messes around. Just
Yeah,
kidding
you
to
got
my
your built-in
Italian.
security. It's all good.
Yeah, we don't take any shit. We'll take it into our
Oh,
own
that's
hands.
so
But
true.
you're
It's so
absolutely right, right? We're welcome to go into any of our communities, and so we shall. I gotta say, on a little aside, the one thing that I am disgusted with is the number of churches that are burned in this country.
yes.
I
I've brought that up many times in the past.
I wonder who's behind all that. And yet the media is silent on that. It is a despicable, disgusting act. And this is why I say to other folks, watch what you do because I think that you guys are first in line. It won't be last in line.
Well, I think it's well over, I think it's over 100, close to 150 plus or minus so far that have burnt down in the last 5 years, which is, and not being reported. I post about it all the time whenever I hear about them because I want to get that conversation out there. But the target's been a long time coming. So I'll tell you, back in the 80s and 90s, I used to love American Thanksgiving through to January 1st was the best time of the year, right? The malls were popping. You'd go there. It was craziness. It was chaos, but you still loved it. And when you left the store, we were said the same thing, no matter what religion you were said by the cashier, Merry Christmas. And that hasn't happened in 30 years. That was the start. And then, so that was, the language was taken out. We can no longer have a Merry Christmas. It's the Christmas season. I still call it Christmas vacation. It's not holiday
Yeah.
vacation. It's Christmas vacation.
Yes. That's a great point. This was years ago. Must have been 25, 30 years ago. When I was at a large public accounting firm, I shifted my greeting from Merry Christmas to season greetings because I had a multitude.
Right.
It was a non-Christian who said to me, "Why did you change for?" And I said, "Well, I'm just trying to be respectful." And he goes, "No, no, no, no. Like, you're actually being disrespectful to like,
Yes.
yeah, like, if I say Merry if during the Christmas season, I will say Happy Hanukkah to you, and you'll say Merry Christmas to me, and this is what
Exactly.
Canada is about. It's a
That's what it's
celebration."
about.
Correct. So no, I agree. For some reason, even Christians are embarrassed. And this
Yeah.
is what this has happened. We are a Judeo-Christian founded country, and there's no disrespect to anybody who's going to be freaking out from an indigenous perspective, but I'm just trying to raise a pointer. And yet we seem to somehow now be ashamed that that is what our values are based on. And just like there is Islamic-based countries, and they should be proud that that
Yeah.
is an Islamic-based country, and we have absolutely no right or to change whatever their laws or customs are, the same must be true. But yet, for some particular reason, we feel it's wrong to defend the basis of our values here. And I think you're absolutely right. It starts with the tone of the top. This is who we are. This is what we're proud about. And and I think we get that back on track. I think Canada will find its direction and go back in the right way. And I think we will, by the way.
I think so. Hey, listen, I think it'll get a little bit worse before it gets better. And I've been saying that for a while. And I know the work that myself and my organization does is try to expose that and bring that to the front as to how we're fighting, who we have to fight. But it's funny. I have two things to say. One, when we talk about all the things that we got rid of, Merry Christmas to season's greetings to Happy Holidays to just it's snowing outside, right? Like it's disappeared. In Toronto, again, we were built on Judeo-Christian values, and really Toronto was a very Roman Catholic / Presbyterian Protestant city growing up, and the building blocks of it. Nobody has a problem in Toronto with the fact that parking is still free on city streets on Sunday morning till 1 p.m. And I'm a history major. That's because there's an old law in Toronto that you cannot charge street parking when people go to church.
I didn't know
So
that. That's
we
interesting.
get free parking in the city streets on the street, not the green peas, on the street, Sunday morning till 1 p.m. because you cannot charge people to go pray to God. No one seems to have a problem with that one still around. That one seemed to stick around. And
That's
before you go,
interesting.
so I know with Unapologetically Jewish, I met with one of the MPs back in October, and she said, what I love about your name? She's being unapologetically Jewish is really just being unapologetically Canadian. And that's where I think we all have to come back into this mosaic, not a melting pot. We know it doesn't work. And growing up, we didn't have a melting pot. We had a mosaic.
Yeah.
Everybody was who they were. We grew up. My father was a member of the Border Trade Golf and Country Club. Not a lot of Jews were there, but nobody questioned it. Right. And then we'd have Friday night dinner and he'd bring friends over, Jewish, not Jewish, this, that, and nobody cared. We're just going to go for dinner. That was it. And that's where we had to get back to. I think we will. So again, on behalf of our community, that letter that you guys put out there, and if you speak to anybody else, let them know that we truly appreciate it. It's an amazing letter. Thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for being a big supporter of our community. I hope you and I can talk more often down the road. I'm here for anything you ever need, if you ever did. And I want to thank you, John. Honestly, goodness, thank you so much.
Great. And Matt, the only thing I would say it's our community.
Our community.
It's our community,
That's
not
right.
your community. That's the point. This is Canada. This is who we are.
Exactly. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Ron, again, thank you. Stick around for a couple of seconds before we leave. Again, my name is Matt Taub, Unapologetically Jewish Podcast. Thank you, John. That letter was amazing. We're going to have a link to it in the bio so you can make sure you take a look at it. If you want to be joining it, stop onto the website. I believe it's stopantisemitism.com. I will talk to you soon, John. Thank you so much.
Thank you.